Yeah, say it with me. Monday is fun day. Welcome in another edition of the Joe Raineri Show here on WTF Sports TV. And I don't know about you, but I am downright exhausted from all the crap that we had to witness this past weekend in the world of sports. We've got plenty to cover, including the good, the bad, and just the downright ugly ass play and sporting events and performances that we had to endure over the weekend at sports as sports fans. It was exhausting. I mean, I, for one, am absolutely exhausted having to watch the Dolphins and the Jets and the Bills play and the damn Ryder Cup team play. This was just a trying weekend, and it started even on Saturday in college football. Penn State fans are still trying to dissect and figure out on 4th and 5 exactly what that call was and what that play was that allowed them to lose a game they were thoroughly beating Ohio State in. But that's a whole nother discussion. We'll talk about Coach Franklin's decision there and what he decided to do after the game, which was pretty funny. Coming up here in just a couple of minutes, though, I couldn't think of anybody better to bring on the show to talk about what we witnessed in the Miami Dolphin New England Patriots game than our friends with 5 Reasons Sports and the 3 Yards Per Carry podcast. Co-host Chris Kouffman is going to join us here in just a couple of minutes to kind of go over what we saw, what Dolphin fans are up in arms about right now. According to Dolphin fans, a lot of people all over social media, the season is over. The frauds have returned, and they are pretty much sticking a fork in the entire season. And we're going to talk to Chris and figure out if that is the smart way to go or not the smart way to go if you are a Dolphin fan. And quite honestly, where do you go from here as a Dolphin fan? You really thought, and I do think there's a lot of people that were buying into the Miami Dolphin hype of being 3-0 and that this could definitely be the year that we take this over the hump, where we start saying goodbye to Tom Brady and Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots, and we start welcoming in the new AFC East era that includes, at the top, the Miami Dolphins. But it wasn't to be, and we do this every year. And whether it's Dolphin fans, Patriot fans, it doesn't really matter. We always do this. We look at September, and we forget year after year after year that usually what happens in September doesn't mean anything come November. It really doesn't. The truth is the Dolphins are still 3-1, and the other reality is the Patriots are now 2-2, just like they were last year and the year prior to that, and 3 out of 4 of the years prior to that. So once again, I think we have this recency bias where we forget what September truly means in the NFL season. And for a lot of teams, it doesn't mean a damn thing. Unless, of course, you go 0 for 4, and then the chances of you making the playoffs become slim to none. But for those that can rattle off a couple of victories in September, 2 wins, 2 losses. You're never as good as you look. You're never as bad as you appear to be in those losses. And really, to me, the season starts now moving forward. What do the Dolphins do on the road against the Cincinnati Bengals? All right? You just got your teeth kicked in by, Old Faithful there, Tom Brady and the New England Patriots. So what do you do now? And the injuries continue to pile up. So we're going to talk to Chris Kouffman, co-host of 3 Yards Per Carry, part of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. If you guys haven't checked out their podcast, if you are a fan of Miami teams, this is definitely the place to go, at 5 Reasons Sports, whether it's the Miami Heat, even the Marlins. And I know there's got to be at least 3 fans of the Marlins somewhere in this country who don't realize that Kristen Yelich is actually playing for the Milwaukee Brewers right now. And we'll get to that debacle here in a second. But you got to check out the podcast and the people involved in the podcast, because it's everything that Miami sports, South Florida sports is. And I would encourage you guys, go check them out on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Go check out the podcast. They are wired in, and they truly have a very level-headedness about the shows that they carry, and the hosts. They're not homers. They are very realistic in their approach to covering the teams, and you got to love that and appreciate that, because if you spend enough time on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube, and if you spend enough time in the podcast arena, man, you got a lot of homers, man. They can't see the forest from the trees. It's either the sky is falling or everybody's going to win their championship. So it's nice and refreshing to know that there are hosts out there putting on shows that you can actually get a realistic point of view from. So looking forward to talking to him in just a second. But baseball, this cluster of crap that is going on right now. If you don't know, there are 2 163rd games happening today. That is right, because Major League Baseball can't figure out a way, after playing 162 regular season games, to somehow come up with a tie-breaking system that would allow for, there not to be a 163rd game to decide exactly who's going to advance and where and how in the playoff system. But Major League Baseball, as usual, cannot get their shit together, and they are forcing 4 teams to play today. Right now, the Brewers are at the Cubs, and it does look like, and I've got this game up here, so let me see if it's over yet, but it looks like the Brewers 3-1, bottom of the 9th inning. It looks like that game is almost over, so it does look like, in fact, the Brewers are going to be hosting the Cubs, rather, are going to be hosting the wild card game, and the Brewers are going to take the National League Central. And coming up here in just about 6 or 7 minutes will be first pitch of the Rockies at the Dodgers. The winner of that game will win the National League West, and the loser is going to be the road team in the wild card game, it looks like, taking on the Chicago Cubs. So congratulations, Major League Baseball. 162 games into the season, and you still can't figure your crap out. It's why we've got to play 163rd game is beyond me. It may be fun, but it's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my entire life, because now you've got to drain resources to go into a win and you're in game. If you're the Cubs, you had to drain resources today now to be able to host a one-off tomorrow. And you're either going to be taking on the Rockies or the Dodgers. None of this makes any sense to me. I love the wild card idea. I love the win and you're in. But having to push out a 163rd game is just asinine in my point of view. I don't know. You guys may love it. But if you do, or if you hate it, you can always reach me and talk to me at 855-WTF-2255. That is the Miami Acura hotline. That is how you reach us here on the show. And, of course, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, streaming streaming across Periscope, every platform known to mankind at WTF Sports TV. So we'll keep you posted as that game gets ready to first pitch. We're looking at Rockies and Dodgers, so we'll keep you posted as to what that score is and what's happening as we move along, trying to figure out exactly who it is that's going to be making it to what is the Major League Baseball playoffs and who's going to make it to the wild card game. It's very confusing. It doesn't need to be this chaotic. And also keep in mind, by adding a 163rd game, you gave Christian Yelich an opportunity. And I know Marlin fans don't want to hear this. No, actually, they shouldn't want to hear it. And I apologize to any of you Marlin fans watching this right now or listening to this. You may want to throw the earmuffs on. But Christian Yelich had an opportunity at the Triple Crown. And if he would have, and he went 3 for 4 today, but luckily he didn't hit any home runs, and we're not going to have controversy for the rest of mankind. But you gave him an extra game to be able to nail the Triple Crown by becoming I think he's second in home runs, if I'm not mistaken. But he legitimately would have had a shot at breaking a record, and that hasn't been done in the National League since, get ready for this name, Joe Medwick, back in 1937 for the Cardinals. Game 163 will go into the books as a regular season game. So they gave him an opportunity to break a ridiculous record, one that should be broken within the regular season. He was leading batting average, 324, didn't hurt himself there, going 3 for 4 today. He was one home run behind Nolan Arenado for the National League lead, and Nolan, of course, is going to be playing this afternoon with the Colorado Rockies. And he was first in runs batted in, or I'm sorry, second in runs batted in, 109, trailing only Javier Baez of the Cubs by 2 for the National League lead. So given all of this, an extra 163rd game, you gave this guy, Christian Yelich, an opportunity to be able to put himself in the record books and do something that nobody's been able to do since 1937. Oh, yeah, you gave him an extra game to be able to accomplish it. So it's kind of Bush League any which way you cut it. To me, that's unfair. And Major League Baseball, you got to be able to figure out after 162 damn games who's first, who's second, who's playing in without having to add the stress of a 163rd game for these ball clubs and for these fan bases. That, I don't know. That is just me. I do think it is over. I do think that the Brewers have officially won. So the Brewers win National League Central. Who saw that coming? And that means that they, in fact, will be hosting whoever the loser is of this upcoming game between the Rockies and the Dodgers. And like I said, we will certainly keep you posted on that. Okay, so joining us here today, and I couldn't think of anybody better to bring on to talk about the debacle that we witnessed yesterday from the Miami Dolphins than Chris Kouffman. He's part of the 3 Yards Per Carry podcast, part of the up-and-coming, the fantastic 5 Reasons Sports Network. If you haven't checked them out, make sure you head over to Twitter and check them out, because if you love Miami sports, then nobody covers them better than the 5 Reasons Sport Network. And Chris, thank you so very much for taking some time and joining us on this very, very solemn, somber Monday.
Yeah, this is not Victory Monday. This is Dismal Monday.
All right, well,
thanks for having me.
Not a problem. Let me start off by saying this first and foremost there, Chris. As bad as it was for the Dolphins yesterday, and it was bad, at least you didn't have Jeff Fisher calling your broadcast like we Jet fans had, okay? Because you want to talk about watching paint dry. It was Quaalude City yesterday listening to Jeff Fisher. It was brutal, but it still doesn't take away from the fact that it was a tough watch, that Miami Dolphin game taking on the New England Patriots. Did you guys originally, what were you expecting? What were the expectations from your podcast, the 3 Yards Per Carry, going into the game?
All 3 of us picked the Dolphins to lose the game. And personally, I picked them to lose by multiple scores. I thought that, heading into New England, that's a very hard place to play. They're almost impervious up there in that home stadium over the years. You really look at the record and everything. And the Dolphins, under head coach Adam Gase, where their road offense or the road team just kind of takes turns. It's like a 1 out of 3 probability. Is it going to be just barely good enough to win, or is it going to be just barely bad enough to lose, or is it going to be just really bad? And it's 1 out of 3. And unfortunately, when you're going to play a high IQ team that is really well coached, like the Patriots or the Baltimore Ravens, or in the past the Carolina Panthers, it's more of a chance that it's going to be just plain bad. So I picked them to lose by multiple scores. And it still hurts. It doesn't matter if you figure that's going to happen. It still hurts.
Well, it's funny looking around social media and on Twitter and Dolphin fans. You've got some of these folks that are here we go again. They get our hopes up only to let us down. And I think maybe what some of them are realizing is that it would be one thing if you lost to the Kansas City Chiefs or the Rams. One of the top echelon teams in the league. But you've got a lot of people looking at the New England Patriots going, this isn't even one of the better Patriot teams we've seen over the last 12 to 15 years in a lot of people's eyes. So I think maybe that's where a lot of this disappointment is coming in. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely. But it's also the missed opportunity factor, because a lot of Dolphin fans were looking at this as the opportunity to really pile on the Patriots, get 3 games ahead of them, kind of victimize them while they're going through a little bit of a slump. But it's good to look at what happened with the Patriots during that slump. They played 2 consecutive road games. They're not the same team on the road that they are at home. Like I said, they're almost impervious at home. But, so they dropped the 2 road games. And you have to understand that early in the season, the Patriots, I mean, you know this. This is not talking about anything that you don't know. The Patriots early in the season are not the same as they are in October, November, December. So it was just a missed opportunity that maybe we're playing the Patriots at the exact right time. Miami is doing really well, off to a 3-0 start. The Patriots played a couple of consecutive road games and lost. Maybe this is the time to pile on and really, really get in on them. And then they just flubbed it. And so now the disappointment has set in, and everything sucks.
Chris Kouffman joining us, part of the Five Reasons Sports Network there. Of course, it's the 3 yards per carry podcast. If you guys love the Miami Dolphins, this is definitely the podcast that you guys want to hop on, because just like you heard him say, there was no sugarcoating it. They didn't go in blowing smoke up the Dolphins' ass going, oh my God, they're going to win. It's going to be 4-0. I mean, they were very realistic with their approach, which is refreshing, Chris, because you do have that segment of the population, certainly here in South Florida, that after a 3-0 start, the Dolphins were going to go undefeated and win the Super Bowl. And it's not realistic, and not with this team just yet. But what was the most disappointing thing to you about yesterday's performance from the Dolphins?
Well, I mean, when you lose 38-7, there's so much that is disappointing. But what's disappointing to me is that the Dolphins weren't ready to match sort of the Patriots' high IQ approach to the game and the way that they sub their personnel in and out, particularly on defense. They overuse dime defense or 6 defensive backs a little bit. They even go into 7 defensive backs in certain situations. They use down distance, clock, field position, stuff like that as like a 12th defender. And the Miami offense just didn't cope with it. And so there's the one thing of them not actually being able to beat it, and that's bad enough. But the other thing is Miami doesn't do that themselves. Just like a lot of teams in the league, they don't have the same approach that the Patriots do. But it's really disappointing when you get it kind of rubbed your noses in it like that, because they're clearly doing things that you're not.
Amen to that, and they've done it year after year after year. What do you make of the lack? I wouldn't even say lack of a running game, because you actually have to try to run the ball in order to have a running game. And it seems as if the running the ball, Kenyan Drake, they were all afterthoughts and just abandoned it altogether in the beginning of that game. What's going on with the running game with the Miami Dolphins?
Well, I think the Dolphins are trying to look at the running game a little bit outside of the box. And it's not just Frank Gore and not just Kenyan Drake taking the handoffs. It's also Albert Wilson. It's also Jakeem Grant on these end arounds. It's also Ryan Tannehill on the zone reads. They've made a lot of yardage that way. Some of it kind of technically goes down as a pass because it's that little forward flip, garbage that you see in college. It always goes down as a completed pass, even though it's like 6 inches. But yeah, they view it. They view it outside the box, so they're trying to run the ball in a lot of different ways, and they've been really successful in the first 3 games doing that. Even though against the Raiders, it didn't look like classic Frank Gore and Kenyan Drake getting a bunch of yardage. But in this game, I think it was just the scoreboard and the penalties and, the various snags that caused them to lose yardage, put them in a certain situation where they're just like, well, we can't run the ball at this point anymore. We have to try and open it up and pass it. The Patriots were doing a really fantastic job playing situational on defense, I think. It was just like I said, they used the down and distance and situation as a 12th defender so that they could overplay certain things, and the Dolphins just weren't up for it.
Chris Kouffman joining us, 3 Yards Per Carry podcast, part of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. What about give me one positive, because we could sit here all day long picking this apart. But were there any positives that you witnessed yesterday that you say, hey, listen, we can build off of this?
Well, I think that if you look at the tape, you do see that some of the receivers were actually getting open a lot, and if they could have. The interior line, especially once the center got hurt and they had to go with backup at center, and as well as they have already got a backup at left guard, the interior line was kind of caving a little bit. But some of those receivers were open on offense. And then on defense, they got positive performances by some of the defensive line players, particularly Cameron Wake. You look at some of the defensive tackles they had. They pulled up a kid, Jonathan Woodard, from the practice squad, who was lights out in the preseason, and he came in the game and was lights out in the game. He's the guy that replaced William Hayes, so that's a positive. But, when you play 81 plays on defense or something like that, you're going to let up points. You're going to let up a whole lot of points because that's just too many plays. It's like a college game. So I think that the third down on defense is obviously a huge negative, and I have plenty of hair-pulling moments with the defensive coordinator about his third down play calls. Well, that's another story. But the positive, I think, there were some individual performances on the defensive line and on the in the wide receivers unit that I would roll forward with and kind of focus on.
45 offensive plays from Miami, and their defense played 75 defensive plays there. That is not a recipe for success in any way, shape, or form. And maybe to add insult to injury, we're really adding to injury is that they are starting to pile up here, Chris. We got offensive line problems. We already know that. Now we've got Bobby McCain. We don't know what was going on with we got all sorts of backup secondaries going. Rashad Jones is already hurt. So what is happening from a health standpoint here moving forward with the Miami Dolphins?
Well, the big disappointment, I think, is still I go to the offensive line because this isn't the plan. The plan was Josh Sitton at left guard, Daniel Kilgore at center, with you can deal with Jesse Davis at right guard and then have a strong tackle unit with Juwan James and Laramie Tunsil. Now, all of a sudden, Sitton's out for the whole year. Kilgore goes out after, I think, something like 12 snaps or 16 snaps, something like that. And so you're playing the whole game with Travis Swanson and Ted Larson. That's not the plan. And unfortunately, it takes its toll on a lot of these plays that we're talking about. So that's the big one to me. If I'm looking at the secondary, going without Rashad Jones is interesting. But, it's not that they're fumbling around looking for answers. It's that they have a rookie in Minkah Fitzpatrick, and they have to figure out where he can play best, where he can do the most damage, really, because he's actually really good. So he's played a lot of slot corner this year because that's really the position that made him famous at Alabama. And so to keep him at slot corner, they would have to bring in somebody like, Maurice Smith to play safety behind him in the nickel package. And you can get a little dicey on that. Or you can move Minkah Fitzpatrick back to free safety to replace Rashad Jones and then you got an extra corner coming on the field. They kind of go back and forth between those, and sometimes it's working, sometimes it's really not.
What is the mood from Adam Gase so far today? Chris Kouffman joining us, 3 yards per carry podcast, part of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Adam Gase, does he take a lot of this? Does he shoulder a lot of the blame when he usually has situations like this? Certainly in the past, they've actually done well, at least at home, coming off of major blowouts under Adam Gase. But they're not going to be at home this week; they're on the road to Cincinnati. So, is Adam Gase's mood? Is it kind of we got to forget it? I got to do a better job, or is he sort of looking in one direction or another right now?
Well, today what he did that was interesting is he actually did mention that when somebody was asking him about the receivers and whether they were covered all day, he actually replied to them and said, well, Jakeem Grant and Danny Amendola were open all day, and we just didn't get the ball to them for whatever reason. So that almost seemed like he was putting a little bit of the blame on Ryan Tannehill at quarterback. I don't think that's necessarily true, because what he was also trying to say is that there was pressure that didn't let it happen. And I think that it was sort of an alternating set of, reasons or excuses as to why the ball couldn't come out. And he does a pretty good job of sort of rotating between taking blame himself and saying, this play call was really an awful play call and this guy bailed me out of it, or saying most of the time he is going to, I don't necessarily trust him to be actually 100% straight with the press either about his players and blame, because he's going to cover for them, 99 times out of 100. But when he doesn't cover for them, that's when he's a little bit mad.
Yeah.
And so, and that's, yeah. So that I think today he's a little bit mad based on what he's been saying.
Did we ever get, for the reason Juwan James being removed from the game, did we ever get to the understanding as to what was happening there and what was going on? Was it just a performance thing, or was there something else we missed?
Big mystery. I still haven't heard myself from any of our people. It's not. I'm trying not to say that it's a big deal or anything, because at that point in the game, Adam Gase is right. They were rotating some of the the more lower rung players in because they knew the game was over. But some of the other offensive linemen didn't come out. So,
yeah.
So that's the big mystery. I'm not really sure. I know that Adam Gase has had some frustrations with Juwan going back to 2016.
Oh, did we lose? Oh, I think we lost him over there, but that's all right. We'll get him back. Chris Kouffman at CK Parrott. He's part of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. If you guys haven't checked him out, make sure you check him out. The podcast is 3 yards per carry, and I can tell you right now, if you love the Miami Dolphins, there is absolutely no better podcast in the world that covers the Dolphins and Miami sports, for that matter, better than the 3 yards per carry podcast, and of course the other great shows that are part of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. And I think we've got Chris back joining us at CK Parrott on Twitter is where you can reach him. And the bottom line is, at that particular point in the game, when we last spoke to you there, Chris, was Juwan James still a mystery, but it wasn't as if they weren't rotating other guys in and out at that particular point anyway. So maybe we shouldn't look too much into it.
No, I agree. I agree. It's probably nothing, but it's something that we're going to be asking about.
A lot. Yeah, exactly. All right, moving forward, you got Cincinnati on the road this week here. Cincinnati coming off an amazing game in Atlanta, taking on the Falcons, beating them with a last-second play. So they've got their work cut out for them on the road, heading to Cincinnati, too.
Yeah, I think so. And this is actually just, I've said this, I've talked about this with some other people. This is a terrible 2-week stretch that I really was not looking forward to, because before the season even began, our guys, our co-hosts and I were doing our projections of how we think this season is going to play out, and, kind of in rough form. And I thought really a 3-0 start was on the horizon against the Titans and the Jets and the Raiders. But then 2 consecutive losses were also on the horizon against the Patriots and the Bengals. And I was not looking forward to the mood that was going to take hold when that happened, because I know that, we as Dolphin fans and our media and everybody, we tend to get really, really pessimistic during those periods of losses. And I think we've got 2 in a row happening. As I said, the Dolphins are not a great road team under head coach Adam Gase. So I don't think that this one's in the cards for them either.
Chris Kouffman joining us. All right, Chris, one final question before I let you go here. All right, better chance of happening here, the Miami Dolphins making the playoffs or Jimmy Butler playing for the Miami Heat? Go.
Miami Dolphins making the playoffs.
I love it. All right, Chris, tell for those that don't know and maybe just joining us here, talk to us a little bit about the 3 Yards Per Carry podcast and what you guys do and how people can get in touch with you, all that good stuff.
Yeah, sure. 3 Yards Per Carry is myself, Chris Kouffman, along with Simon Clancy and Alf Artiaga. You can find us at 3 Yards Per Carry on Twitter. Myself, I'm at CK Parrott. Simon is at Cy Clancy. You can find any of us. Follow us on Twitter. We put out a lot of information on the podcast. We try to get, obviously, as you can probably tell from this interview, a little bit more in-depth and a little bit more intelligent discussion of what's really going on with the X's and O's and substitutions and all that. And that's what we try to do. That's where we're coming from. And we also try not to, blow sunshine up your what
Yep.
either. We try to be realistic and tell you what's really going on with the team. So we'd love you to listen. We release twice a week during the season on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and you can find it. It's 3 Yards Per Carry. You can find it on iTunes. You can find it on just about any of your podcast providers. So take a listen.
Yeah, perfect. Chris Kouffman at CK Parrott on the screen there, 3 Yards Per Carry, all part of the amazing Miami Sports On Demand, the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Make sure you check them out if you love Miami sports. There is no better place to go get all the information you need about your favorite Miami teams than the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Chris, I thank you so very much for taking a few minutes out of your day, man, hanging out with us.
Yeah, thank you.
I look forward to doing it again, man. Best of luck to the Dolphins. Go Dolphins, and best of luck with the podcast. Man, thanks for stopping by.
Thanks a lot for having me. It's been fun.
All right, there you go. That is Chris Kouffman from the 3 Yards Per Carry podcast. And listen, being a Miami Dolphin fan is not an easy thing, and neither is being a New York Jet fan. So we're kind of all in the same boat, trying to watch these teams grow a little bit, and it just becomes extremely frustrating. No more frustrating than it was trying to watch the Jaguars and the Jets play yesterday, and it was rough. I'm not going to lie. It was really, really rough. And to make matters even worse, and we'll talk about this coming up in just a minute. I don't know if you guys caught, because you were probably watching the Dolphin game, but if you were flipping around at any one point and you headed over to the Jet and Jaguar game, then you probably witnessed something that was worse than watching paint dry. And I'll play you a clip of it, and you can check it out. And I don't know who gave this guy a job, but we have to take it away from him as soon as possible. And we'll talk about that coming up here in just a minute. At first, though, we do want to thank our sponsors here, Miami Acura. They want you to stop by, take a test drive, the all-new 2019 RDX. This car is amazing. Completely redesigned. It's like driving in your living room. It really is. Go take it for a test drive. The prices, the lease availability, unlike anything that you have seen in the past. So stop by South Dixie Highway, Palmetto Bay, for those of you in the 305-561-954. Just pick up the phone and call them, 855-564-4669. That's 855-564-69. That is Miami Acura. Do yourself a favor and go take a test drive to the all-new, brand-new 2019 RDX, only at Miami Acura. All right, coming up, we'll talk about some of the good, some of the bad, and some of the downright ugly ass performances that we got this weekend in the world of sports. We will do that as soon as we get back. But first, we got to spend a little love and a little time supporting our sponsors and hope that you'll support them. They do a great job of supporting us. So we'll take a minute here to acknowledge Low Cost Airlines, Superior Cruise and Travel, and of course our friends at Miami Acura.
Dish TV is better than cable TV. Why? Because you can save 45% on packages compared to your high-priced cable bill. Wow. Take those giant scissors out and cut the cable and save with Dish TV. Plus, you get a free DVR upgrade to record your favorite shows and free installation. And with Dish Anywhere, you can watch TV for free on your mobile device. Act fast. You can save hundreds of dollars. Does your cable company do that for you? I don't think so. Get all the best TV programming at your fingertips at a fraction of the price of cable TV. So say adios, arrivederci, goodbye to the high cable bill and save up to 45% on Dish TV packages today. These are limited time offers and can change at any time. Call fast. 800-293-0328. 800-293-0328. 800-293-0328. That's 800-293-0328.
Do you use the expensive blue or yellow pills to charge your sex life? Are you thinking about it? What if we can promise you the same results for less than $3 a pill? If you're paying $20 a pill for the other pills, you're getting taken to the cleaners. Our pills deliver the exact same results for less than $3. You'll save more than $16 a pill for the same results. And right now, radio callers will get 44 blue or yellow pills for $120 with free discreet shipping. You can save more than $700 off pharmacy prices. Charge your sex life now and save a ton of money. Call now and get your 44 pills and save over $700 and qualify for free shipping. Stop overpaying and call right now.
800-764-9168. 800-764-9168. 800-764-9168. That's 800-764-9168.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
800-761-1427. 800-761-1427. 800-761-1427. That's 800-761-1427.
Get ready to talk sports. It's the Say It With Me podcast. Now here's your host, Joe Raineri.
Happy Monday Fun Day to you. Welcome back. Want to say hello to the crazies that are starting to line up in the chat room here, including, I knew it was going to be a matter of time before Vori started coming in here, dropping some Raider love. I know he was all proud of his Raiders, and yes, I took the Raiders, even -2.5, managed to end up winning that game. I don't know how we won that game. Actually, we want to thank the Raiders and the referees in that game for allowing the Raiders to be able to come back and actually put that game away. Otherwise, we would have ended up having another tie. And boy, I got to tell you, I'm not going to lie, even though that I had the Raiders in that game, I was so looking forward, and I mean so looking forward, to the Cleveland Browns having 2 ties. I think it would have been just absolutely perfect. The NFL deserves a team with 2 to 3 ties at the end of the year, for them not being able to figure out a better way to be able to get it done in the NFL in overtime. So, Vori, congratulations there. I want to say hello to Jeremy. As always, let's see who else we got in the room here. Jeffrey, always good to see you. And Steve, also a pleasure to see you guys. Welcome in here. of course, at WTF Sports TV every Monday through Friday. 4 o'clock, that is how you reach us here. I want to thank Chris Kouffman from 3 Yards Per Carry, the podcast on the 5 Reasons Sports Network, for dropping by, talking Miami Dolphins. It was a sad weekend. No way to put it. The Dolphins got their asses handed to them, as did a whole lot of the other AFC East teams, including the Buffalo Bills, who I kind of feel bad. I told you, I feel bad for that kid. He's going to be running for his life for a long time. This kid is going to be mentally scarred, if not broken, by the end of the year if he has to continue to play behind that offensive line for the Buffalo Bills. They are atrocious. And they played in Lambeau Field against a Green Bay team. And I don't know if you guys caught Aaron Rodgers after the game yesterday, but he pretty much threw Mike McCarthy right under the bus, bent out of shape with the play calling, called Mike McCarthy out in the press conference afterwards, thought the score probably should have been 56-0, and he's right. It probably should have been 56-0, but 22-0 is what they won by, and he still wasn't happy, and he's not happy with the play calling. So, well, you can do that when you make $160 million a year and you're one of the best quarterbacks. I guess you can go out and call your coach out, is exactly what he did. So, but man, oh man, it was a rough weekend for the fans of the AFC East, especially the Jets. And the only thing worse than actually watching the Jet game and being a Jet fan yesterday was having to endure the game on television with Jeff Fisher being the announcer. I'm watching. I'm trying to monitor a few of the games that are going on yesterday, and I'm listening to the Jet game, and I'm going, I know that voice. Like, what is it? And then all of a sudden, I was like, oh my God, that is Jeff Fisher. And I realized, because it was like watching paint dry. It was like listening to paint dry. It was the boringest thing I've ever been involved with in my entire life. Now, the game itself had its own issues, but the broadcast and listening to Jeff Fisher explain football, it like nails on a chalkboard when I tell you. It was probably the most boring thing I've been involved with in a long, long time. So let me go ahead and play it for those of you that didn't have a chance to catch this yesterday. But this was Jeff Fisher on the broadcast. Let me see if I can get it in here and switch it over for you guys, because it was terrible. It was.
Everybody's playing man-to-man. We cut Dede loose here, and we're supposed to have an inside defender pick up the shallow cross. He's not there. A problem for the Jet defense with the mental error there. Ends up in a big play here. Now we're well within the red zone.
Yeah, that was exciting. Were you guys excited? You feel pumped up watching that? Could you feel the excitement through the voice? Because it was awful. Absolutely awful. There were some exciting moments of that game, but you would have never known it if you were listening to Jeff Fisher call games. So I get, when Tony Romo first started calling games, you could tell that he had the knowledge, he had the excitement. Sometimes he came across as a fan in the stands watching the game, doing kind of color. But my word, this is just terrible. And if he's going to be doing more and more games, just hope that your favorite team doesn't end up getting the Jeff Fisher broadcast for the game. You're not going to be able to watch it with the sound on. You're going to have to sit there and listen to it with the sound off, because Jeff Fisher is the most boringest thing I think I've ever been involved with in my entire life. That voice is enough to make anybody go to sleep. So if you have insomnia, it's actually a great thing. But wow, that was brutal. It was almost as brutal watching the Doug Marrone and the Jacksonville Jaguars not only ice the game on the goal line by running the ball in, and watching the Jets linemen just stand up, not even trying to stop them on 4th and goal, but then watching Marrone go for 2 instead of kicking the extra point with about 20 seconds left. That was just priceless. And Doug Marrone's been waiting 4 years to be able to stick it right up the Jets' ass, since they were the ones who didn't hire him 4 years ago, and they ended up going with Todd Bowles. So Doug Marrone actually had an opportunity to be able to exact some revenge there, because prior to this game, the Jets had beaten the Jacksonville Jaguars, I think, the last 3 times that they had played. So at home, Marrone had a chance to kind of, stick it to the Jets, and he did just that. And Todd Bowles, that offense, that defense, it's one thing not to be an offensive guru, and I get it. Todd Bowles, you're a defensive guy. And when you're a defensive guy and you cannot handle the short crossing patterns, and you make Blake Bortles look like Dan Marino, That's on you, man. That's not on your defensive coordinator. That's on you as the head coach. You are a defensive-minded guy. You're supposed to be this blitzing guru. You said you practiced all week the underneath routes. That's all you practiced. You knew it was coming, and yet your team wasn't ready to play in the first half, and they ended up getting smoked. That's on you, man. So turn up the damn fire, because it is going to be a little hot in New York for the rest of the season with Todd Bowles as the head coach of the New York Jets. To me, there is just no excuse for laying that kind of egg. You had one of the top defenses, top 5 defenses in the NFL going into that game, and you let Blake Bortles rip you apart and shred you apart. No Leonard Fournette. TJ Yeldon is nowhere even remotely close. They didn't have to run the ball. All they kept doing was hitting the underneath routes all day long. No adjustments, no excuse. That's on you, Todd Bowles. So good luck in New York, because it's going to be real interesting moving forward as they crank up the heat, especially the New York media, on Todd Bowles and calling for his ass, because something's got to be done. You got to figure out what to do with Sam Darnold as well. You cannot, this kid just can't be a screen machine, okay? You can't. Anybody that watched that Cleveland Raiders game yesterday, not a lot of screens involved in what Baker Mayfield is doing. What Hugh Jackson and what that team is doing is allowing him to be who he is, Baker Mayfield. And it just looks like Sam Darnold is thinking way too much. There was a report earlier this week that it looks like Jeremy Bates, the offensive coordinator, wants to trim down what's going on in the playbook, and others in the organization don't want him to do that. They wanted to open it up, and Bates doesn't want to. And what you get is a lot of indecision, and you get that kind of deer caught in the headlight look, and that's what Sam Darnold looks like right now. And that's on the coaching staff. I don't know how else to put it. That is on the coaching staff. And for you not to have any running game, and not to be able to play defense, which is really what lost you that game, was the defense. At least Sam Darnold didn't throw an interception yesterday, but you deserve exactly the embarrassment that you got by having Doug Marrone go for 2 with 20 seconds left in the game, already up by close to 2 scores. So congratulations there. Some of the good that we saw yesterday, real quick, the Tennessee Titans and Mike Vrabel, congratulations. He took a page out of Doug Peterson and the Philadelphia Eagles book and stuck it to them. He did exactly what the Eagles did to most teams last year, including the Patriots. He went for it. He went for it a lot. And Mike Vrabel had an opportunity yesterday in that game in overtime to kick a 50-yard field goal to go ahead and tie this game up. And instead, he opted to go for it and go on the 4th down, and he ended up getting it. Not once, not twice, 3 times. Mike Vrabel opted to go for it on 4th down in overtime to be able to give his team a chance to win the game as opposed to just tie the game. Philadelphia had taken the opening drive in overtime, kicked a field goal, and then they had a couple of 4th down conversions, but what the last 4th down conversion was when he had an opportunity to let Ryan suck up a very, very accurate and reliable kicker to go out there and peg a 50-yard field goal to tie it and in all likelihood end the game in a tie. But, yeah, no, he opted not to, and he ended up throwing a screen pass to Dion Lewis for 17 yards. And then 3 plays later, Mariota found Corey Davis, and I hope you guys in fantasy have Corey Davis on your team, because the kid's going to be something special, especially in that offense with Marcus Mariota. He made that game-winning catch in the end zone, and Philadelphia got Philadelphia'd. I mean, they got Doug Peterson, and you gotta have hats off to Mike Vrabel for having the moxie to be able to go out there and call those plays, call his kicking team off the field, send his offense back out there on 4th and 7, whatever it was, and be able, 4th and 4, and call the screen pass and just march down the field and stick it to the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, we had another situation where another first-year coach yesterday tried to do the same thing, and Frank Reich, he had an even riskier call, because in overtime, and that game was just a lot of fun to watch, Houston-Indy, if anybody had a chance to see that game yesterday, it was a lot of fun. But much like Mike Vrabel, Frank Reich decided that, you know what, I don't want to tie here. I want to go for a win. I've got a quarterback in Andrew Luck who has pretty much lit up this team all damn day, and they had an opportunity to be able to go for it on 4th and 7. Problem was they were on their side of the 50, but he felt that he could be able to get it done. He sent the offense out. It was 4th and 7, and unfortunately, Frank Wright, it didn't happen, and then Tennessee went down, took over on downs, got a couple of more yards, and ended up kicking the game-winning field goal in overtime. So history will tell us that Mike Vrabel, the smartest coach in the history of the game, and Frank Wright is a complete idiot trying to figure out his way as a first-year head coach. But the reality is they both did the same damn thing. And unfortunately, you are judged on results, and Mike Vrabel got the results, and Frank Wright didn't. But to me, that was the right call either way. So you want to go for it, then play to go for it. And you're going to start seeing more and more the Sean McVays, the Frank Reichs, the Vrabels of the world here. You are going to start to see these teams go for it more and more and more and play it a little less safe. And it's a lot more fun for you and I. But you also have to be willing to be able to get the criticism that comes with not getting it executed and why didn't you play it safe. And Frank Reich is getting that today, and Mike Vrabel's not. Mike Vrabel, you are the smartest coach in the world now. You are the toast of the town in Tennessee, and you are the toast of the new coaches in the NFL. And Frank Reich is a guy that appears lost and doesn't quite understand what it is to be a head coach. I've seen some amazing headlines today regarding the Indianapolis first-year coach, and it all centers because he had Andrew Luck, who had already thrown for 400-some-odd yards. He had an opportunity to go for it for 4th and 7 in overtime, didn't want to settle for the tie. And by the way, there's no saying he actually would have won the game anyway if they completed it, but he was giving his team a chance to be able to do that. If they would have punted there, they would have ended. That game was a tie. And Frank Reich's thought process, the same way that Mike Vrabel's was, I thought my team deserved a chance to win, and that's exactly what they did. So they went for it, and kudos. You had the right quarterback in both situations. You did. To me, it was the right call. Unfortunately, you didn't get the same result, and I love the bold decision-making. I think it was perfect. 27 seconds left in a tie game. What are you going to do? You're going to punt away and end in a tie? Absolutely not. You go for it. You make the first down. You give yourself a chance. And Vinatieri, who's kicked 9,000 of those field goals, you give him a chance to win the game. 27 seconds left. Would you rather take the tie or go for the win? I think he made the right decision. So that's where I'm looking there. That, to me, was some of the good that happened yesterday. But, of course, we had some of the absolute atrociousness as well that was between the Miami Dolphins, the Buffalo Bills, the New York Jets. And let's also talk about the Le'Veon Bell comment today regarding Earl Thomas. Now, if you guys didn't see it, Earl Thomas ends up breaking his leg again yesterday and in the game against the Arizona Cardinals. And while he's getting carted off the field, he was nice enough to flip the bird to the sideline of the Seattle Seahawks, and that was all anybody could talk about last night during the Monday night game was how, oh my God, you can't do it. You had Rodney Harrison, who I think accumulated about $500,000 in cheap and late hits and fines over the years while he was a player because he was anything but what's the word? He was anything but a fair player. He was also considered one of the dirtiest players ever to play the game. And he's sitting there talking about how, how he shouldn't have been flipping him off and, you're a role model. And he gave that whole bag of crap, which I thought was a little bit ridiculous. But the truth is, Earl Thomas, this is exactly why Earl Thomas wanted a new contract. This is exactly why Le'Veon Bell is not reporting to the Pittsburgh Steelers, because here's what you've got now. The Seattle Seahawks have won. I mean, that they've basically won. Earl Thomas is exactly why Le'Veon Bell is holding out. And to risk that kind of injury, to me, it's just too high to go on a contract year and play without a parachute. And right now, what you've got is a career that could be over in Earl Thomas. It's the same leg that he broke last time a couple of years ago, and now he's in a situation where what's he going to do? He didn't get his contract. He reported because that's what you're supposed to do, or at least that's what everyone wants him to do, because don't let the team down. And Le'Veon Bell is doing the same thing, and Le'Veon Bell tweeted out earlier that, he'll continue to be the bad guy for all of us, but that is exactly why Le'Veon Bell did not report. In a contract year, guarantee my money, give me my contract, I'll come and play. Otherwise, you're going to use me, I might end up getting hurt, and then what am I worth if I'm hurt? Like, what is Earl Thomas worth now? He's got no contract next year. He's out of contract. What do you think? Seattle's going to pay him now? So this is exactly the reason why guys like Le'Veon Bell are doing what they're doing. I hope more guys like Le'Veon Bell do it, because the NFL has a great way of just, chewing players up and spitting them out, and that is exactly what Seattle did. So I don't blame the guy for turning around and giving the finger and flipping off the Seattle Seahawks, because that's exactly, they screwed him. That's basically what they did to him by not giving him the contract extension he wanted. And, they guilted him into showing up and playing this year, and he did, like the good soldier. And guess what? Now he's got no contract, no guaranteed money, and the chance of him being able to sign for anything next year is slim to none. And that sucks for a guy that has been as good as Earl Thomas is, and as good as he has been to that franchise. He was one of the only remaining guys left of that whole Legion of Boom, and you did him dirty. I'm sorry. Any which way you cut it, you did him dirty. So congratulations, Earl Thomas. I would have done exactly the same thing. Screw you to the Seattle Seahawks for the way that you treated him. And keep that in mind every time Pittsburgh Steelers fans keep ripping Le'Veon Bell for not being with the team. Le'Veon Bell's not coming back to Pittsburgh. He's not coming back. The fact that the Pittsburgh Steelers can't get out of their own way, unless Le'Veon Bell can play defense, I'm not sure he's going to make much of a difference for that team. Anyway, the Steelers have created this nightmare situation they're in, and it serves them right for having to deal with what they're dealing with. But that's a glaring reason as to the only reason that you need to know why Le'Veon Bell turned down the $14 million in a franchise tag, because he wants security. And he knew damn well that if he would have reported to camp, the Steelers would have abused him, given him more carries than anybody else in the league, and voila. If something had happened to him or if he got hurt, congratulations. Yeah, you'd have got your $14 million, and you know what? At 26 years old, you'd have had nothing next year. You'd have had no guaranteed money, and you'd have to be starting all over from scratch to prove yourself, because we know how these NFL owners are. So the system sucks. Le'Veon Bell, you're proving it and shining a light on it, and good for you, because players don't want to be Earl Thomas. They don't. And by the way, the Dallas Cowboys, let me just say this. The Dallas Cowboys should be kicking themselves in the ass right now for not taking Calvin Ridley in the draft when they had an option to do so. Okay? Calvin Ridley of the Atlanta Falcons is ridiculous. Through the first quarter of yesterday's game, he's got 5 touchdown receptions, and he leads the league in that category. And I think he ended up with another one yesterday, so he's got 6. Calvin Ridley did. Dallas has 4 touchdowns through the air as a team. They passed on Calvin Ridley in the first round, and they went with Leighton Vander Esch, middle linebacker, who finally got a chance to play yesterday because Sean Lee is out for the next 2 to 4 weeks. And not taking anything away from Leighton Vander Esch, but through 4 games, Ridley is obviously making himself known as one of the upper echelon receivers in the league, and he is becoming a stud. I mean, a stud in this game alongside Julio Jones. It's one of the best 1-2 combinations in the game right now. There are a ton of points that are going to be scored by Calvin Ridley and Julio Jones. And, in fact, Dallas yesterday ended up winning that game against Detroit. And the leading receiver for the Dallas Cowboys was their running back, Ezekiel Elliott. He was the guy that led that team in receptions yesterday for 4 catches, 88 yards. Cole Beasley entered the game as the Cowboys' leading receiver with just 132 yards, and he only caught 4 balls for 53 yards. Meanwhile, Ridley was torching the Cincinnati Bengals secondary all over the place. He's going to keep doing that alongside with Julio Jones. And the Dallas Cowboys, well, you've got Vander Esch. Leighton Vander Esch. I don't know how you take a guy named Leighton in the first round anyway, but Leighton Vander Esch instead of Calvin Ridley. It's going to go down as one of the worst drafts for the Dallas Cowboys. You knew Dez wasn't coming back. You knew Witten was retiring, and instead of stocking up, didn't think Tavon Austin was somehow going to rule the day. Yeah, congratulations, guys. You screwed it up big time, big time. And meanwhile, the Atlanta Falcons are sitting there laughing, going, hey, thanks for Calvin Ridley, man. We certainly do appreciate it. In college, some of the observations that we had yesterday, don't even get me started with the whole Ryder Cup. The Ryder Cup was a nightmare of a situation there. Jim Furyk had no idea what the hell he was doing, like zero. And my favorite part had to be the interview that came out today, in fact, when the guy that nobody likes, in fact, the Patrick Reed that everyone seems to hate, he went and just blasted Jim Furyk and the team for not putting him out there. He said the reason that he wasn't with the guy that he was with a couple of years ago, Jordan Spieth, where they had pretty much dominated the Ryder Cup a few years ago. He said the reason that he wasn't put together with him is because Jordan Spieth doesn't like him. And his point was, well, I don't care. It doesn't matter if I like the guy that I'm playing with. What matters is that we go out and we win some games. You know, we win some matches. He sat out twice during the 4-bowl competition, and he was not happy about it. He didn't win with Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods and Phil Mickelson were 0 for 6, by the way, in their Ryder Cup appearances, so congratulations there. Jim Furyk was coaching like it was 1995 again, and it wasn't. And you left guys like Patrick Reed on the sideline, and you worried about the feelings of people like Jordan Spieth, and congratulations, you got your asses handed to you in the Ryder Cup, which is where you belong. So, and none of those guys, but like none of the big guns. Dustin Johnson was terrible. Brooks Koepka went 1 for 3. Tiger and Phil went 0 for 6. And there's just, you had Phil Mickelson and Bubba Watson teeing off in the alternate shot part of the competition, and neither one of those guys has any idea where the ball's going off the tee. So congratulations on that choice there, Jim Furyk. I mean, if you really want to come down to it, I don't fault Patrick Reed for ripping the Ryder Cup because he's absolutely correct. It shouldn't have been about playing favorites or who likes who. It should have been who gives us the best chance of winning. And Patrick Reed and Jordan Spieth, whether they like each other or not, is a pretty formidable competition going out there. And you opted not to do it, and instead Tiger Woods went hard off the rails early on and never recovered. Phil Mickelson shouldn't have been out there for anything other than a singles match. Your captain's picks, Bryson DeChambeau, and who was the other one? Who else did you pick? Yeah, you handpicked Tiger, Phil, Bryson DeChambeau, and Tony Finau. And the first 3 went 0 for 9. Finau was the only guy that won anything. He went 2 for 1, and he sat out 2 of the sessions. So Jim Furyk, your 3 of your 4 captain's picks went 0 for 9. Congratulations. That's a hell of a job of coaching. So I'm with Patrick Reed. I'd have been bent out of shape too. Man, that was hard to watch. That was and Jordan Spieth got his ass handed to him when he wasn't with his buddy Justin Thomas. And it wasn't as if Justin Thomas was dominating everyone, but at least he was in the matches till about the 17th or 18th hole. But they pretty much got blown out. I mean, it's once again, we need more guys like Patrick Reed than we do of the Tiger Phils and old-ass Jim Furyks of the world, putting Bubba Watson and Phil Mickelson in alternate shot. You have to know where the ball's going off the tee for alternate shot. You need guys that can actually hit it straight, and those 2 guys cannot hit it straight. So completely blew that situation. The other guy that blew it this weekend, another very hard to watch, Penn State. I don't know how you guys can deal with it. And we weren't the only ones, by the way, watching that game going, Penn State's going to lose this. I mean, Penn State is going to lose this. James Franklin, I think, is a great coach. I think he's a really nice guy, but he is going to look back on that game, and he's doing it now going, what the hell did I call on 4th and 5? That was the worst play call I've ever seen. Penn State fans all trying to figure out where in the hell he pulled out that play from. You called a timeout, and then you ran a guy directly into the line as if that was supposed to fake somebody out. And this is what happened after the game when Coach Franklin was heading back towards the locker room. This is what one of the fans had to say to the coach, and he went absolutely ballistic on it too. Take a look at this. This is priceless.
In other words, I love you, but that's a bad call. I love you to death. I love you to death. Should have passed it on 4th and 5. I said I love you to death, but you got to pass that ball. You got really mad. He just wanted to come out and say something. It was fine. He's obviously upset. Yeah, he's obviously upset. I don't blame him.
Obviously upset. Kiss my ass. It was the worst play call I've seen all year. How do you justify that? How do you justify on 4th and 5 against that defensive front running that play into the line? It was terrible. And then to make matters even worse, he goes into the damn press conference saying how his program at Penn State is a good program, but Ohio State's is elite. Could you imagine that? Could you imagine playing for a coach who thinks you're just good, but the guys that we played that we should have beat, that we beat for pretty much the entire damn game, except for the end when we shit our pants, they're somehow elite and we're not? I don't even know what's going on through James Franklin's head right now, the coach at Penn State. Going crazy, man. He's absolutely losing it. And it started with that damn play call. And he's right. And then you're going to jump in the stands and beat the shit out of one of the spectators, one of the fans who, by the way, happens to be correct in calling your ass out on that play. I wouldn't apologize. I'd have said, get your ass up here in the stands and let's fight everyone who thought that was a bullshit call on 4th and 5. What are you doing, Coach Frank? Because you know you screwed up. You know you blew it. As does Dabo Swinney, trying to figure out what he's going to do now that his pride and joy there, his Trevor Lawrence, who's out in concussion protocol. Nobody knows if this kid's coming back anytime soon, which means, you've got this big lump who was good enough to beat Syracuse, even though Syracuse couldn't there's a reason why Syracuse hasn't been ranked since 2002. It's because when they have teams like Clemson on the ropes, they can't finish. And they couldn't finish. They let Clemson back into that game. Another game that Syracuse was dominating and then just faded away, and I blame the coaching staff on that. But not having Kelly Bryant on the sidelines, not being able to smooth that situation over to where the point is that your other starting quarterback basically told you can kiss my ass, I'm leaving. And the fact that you didn't handle that correctly shows that that's the biggest difference between you and that guy in Alabama called Nick Saban. See, because that guy in Alabama had a very similar situation between his two quarterbacks, one an upperclassman, a guy that has been there before, and, of course, one the underclassman in Tua, who is clearly the better quarterback, but that doesn't make it any easier to be able to manage the egos and to be able to handle upperclassmen. But somehow Nick Saban convinced good old Jalen Hurts to be able to hang out and be there in case something happens to Tua, and yet Dabo Swinney wasn't able to be able to talk Kelly Bryant into the situation, understanding what's going on, and now it's going to come back and bite you in the ass. I can assure you that is going to come back and bite you in the ass. Now, I don't know if he's going to have a chance to be able to talk Kelly Bryant because he is still enrolled at the school. I'm not sure if he's going to have an opportunity to talk him into staying and coming back on the team. But Kelly Bryant had to be watching that game and just laughing and going, yeah, okay. You're kidding me, right? Yeah, like you're kidding me? Like you couldn't figure this out, Dabo, and now you've got some sort of third-string red shirt quarterback who was, again, good enough to beat Syracuse, but ain't going to be good enough to beat some of these other teams in the ACC. So good luck, Dabo. I think you're in a real crappy situation, but one that was created by you. And unfortunately for you, that guy in Alabama called Nick Saban, he was faced with a similar situation, only he found a way to figure it out, and you didn't. So I hope the backup third-string redshirt freshman, sophomore, whoever the hell he was, the big boob there is going to be good enough to be able to get you past those games. I don't know. The other one in college on Saturday, taking a lot of heat, of course, is Jimbo for this. Yeah. Of course, Jimbo grabbing the face mask of one of his players, and people have gone all sorts of moral high ground on this with how dare you, what a double standard, Jimbo, my God, don't ever put your hands on a player, and please. Listen, in Jimbo's defense, the kid probably sucked, all right? And he probably deserved it on some level there. I just don't get what the outrage is here, all right? It's football, people. That's how it works. Anybody that's ever spent 30 minutes on a football field during a football practice will know that there are coaches over there that, well, especially guys like Jimbo Fisher, who aren't going to take kindly when you miss your assignments. And you know what? It may mean you getting your ass handed to you on the sideline by him. So I don't understand what the big problem is, but in this day and age, this thing went out social media-wise. It went viral, and people completely lost their lunch on Jimbo Fisher, including that overgrown windbag Booger McFarland, who's jumping all over him on Twitter about, you got to be better than that. Oh, shut your pie hole, Booger, will you please? I'm so sick and tired of hearing people like, oh, you need to be better than that. The guy who needs to be better than that is the kid that was face mask that he grabbed, because he obviously wasn't doing what he was supposed to be told. And how many of you do you want to make a bet that kid is not going to make that, is not going to have that issue moving forward? How many of you want to make a bet he will never make that damn mistake again? God damn hypocritical. I can't with you. Driving me absolutely crazy. Vori, what's going on with you, my friend? What's happening, man? Seminoles won. Oh, Christ. You played a high school team. Will you get over yourself? All right, we'll see what's going to happen against Miami this week. Isn't that the big one, right? Miami? Let's see how it works when you're taking on the U of M this week. I think that game is at 3:30, I think is where they put that game on. And I know U of M fans are really bent out of shape because they won by 31 points against North Carolina, and somehow they fell in the standings and the rankings. Listen. If it wasn't for the fact that North Carolina couldn't tell what uniforms their players had on and what uniforms the University of Miami had on, that game would have been a hell of a lot closer than it was. Your offense with N'Kosi Perry, as bright as the future may be for this kid, I'm telling you right now, your offense is abysmal, and you're not going to beat any of the upper echelon teams that can compete with you. The North Carolina defense was pretty damn stout against that offensive front of the Miami Hurricanes. So you didn't impress me with a 31-point win. What impressed me was the fact that North Carolina just kept throwing the damn ball to you and dropping the ball and allowing you to run it in. 3 pick sixes doesn't mean you should jump up in categories or jump up in the standings. It just means that North Carolina was that bad. So I wasn't that impressed, and we'll see. We'll see what happens with FSU this weekend, but I can tell you right now, you're going to have your hands full, Miami, with FSU, because no matter what, don't make a difference if they don't win another game all year. As long as they beat you, Willie Taggart and the FSU team, they're going to be good to go. So that's what we've got there. What else we got? Leonard Fournette, I'm being told, is out indefinitely. They should probably put him on injured reserve because that hamstring is not getting any better anytime soon. So it doesn't look like they're going to have him anyway. So welcome to the TJ Yeldon era. But hell, with the way they torched the defense of the New York Jets yesterday, Blake Bortles, you don't need anything other than Blake Bortles. All right, there you go. All right, that does it for me here on a Monday, because you got me all riled up now, all aggravated. Plus, you've got, I believe, the Dodgers going on right now. What's the score? Nothing in the top of the fourth. Rockies and Dodgers, game 123 taking center stage. The Brewers have won. They have advanced. The Cubs will go ahead and host a wild card game against whoever loses this Dodgers-Rockies game. So that should be a lot of fun. We'll keep you posted as to what happens there. And, Wednesday is a big day. Yankees, A's. We got a lot of wild card stuff going on. So baseball's just getting excited. And you got a game tonight, Kansas City taking on Denver. I imagine there'll be 3,000 points scored. I do want to thank my friends over at 5 Reasons Sports. Also, the 3 yards per carry podcast, and Chris Kouffman, who stopped by a little bit earlier talking about those Miami Dolphins. If you didn't get a chance to catch the interview, have no fear. It'll be available here on the replay, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. It is here for you guys, so please go ahead and take advantage of it and check it out. Some really great stuff by Chris Kouffman and the 3 yards per carry podcast. If you like the Dolphins, check these guys out. We'll be back tomorrow. We get to do it all over again at 4 o'clock. Hopefully we'll have some less aggravating news, but enjoy the game tonight. Make sure you check out the Chris Kouffman interview here earlier. Tell your friends, like it, retweet it, subscribe, post it, all of that good stuff, and then come back and join us again tomorrow, 4 o'clock. We'll do it again. Have a great night, guys. Happy Monday.